talk about data quality technology in its broadest sense, there are a number of different techniques and technologies that can be applied in that broad data quality umbrella, feeding data sources in to things such as data profiling, data cleansing, address validations, matching and linking technologies, and creating what we call the 360-degree view before feeding the actual AML technology with the data that it requires. And if we're to go through each one of those major steps and show some examples here, we start off with data profiling. Data profiling is the cornerstone of all of this. It is your initial step of discovery, looking at your data, using profiling tools and saying, what data do we have? What state is it in? How often is a certain value missing? Do we have variations in values? Data profiling is that step of being able to look at your data and start to quantify what issues you have and at what sort of depth do those issues go. And some of those issues are shown here. Things like name variations, Robert to Bob, or maybe partly missing names. We've got Ms. Haley, or maybe you've just got Mr. Holland, and so on. Things such as missing gender, incorrect gender when compared to somebody's title. Ms. Haley being listed as a male, well, one of those two values is going to be wrong. You've got things such as key identifiable information, date of birth, being wrong. But you've also got issues in things like addresses. So whether that be missing portions of that address, such as the city, or incorrectly formatted zip codes, or missing state and zip codes. But equally, you've got unparsed addresses, i.e. addresses that are not formatted correctly into a line 1, line 2, line 3. Instead, we've got the whole address squished together in just one lump of text. And like the example I gave earlier on the country on the right there, United States versus USA, variations of what should ultimately be fixed values. So we've got some good examples of what a data profiling exercise can help you to identify and equally quantify. And when you're looking at appending data quality tools, data cleansing is then logically the next step. Once we've identified what issues we actually might have, we can now start putting in place steps and technologies to fix said issues. So whether you know that you've got things such as embedded names in address lines or very closely related to joint account names. So we've got Kim and Jim Tynan and Sarah Haste courtesy of or care of Jack Haste. Or whether you've got, and this goes back to one of the enforcement examples earlier on, you've got Iran as part of a string of text in the street line. Most of the time, using that data in its sort of vanilla form and simply feeding that into a screening system means that you're going to have 3 entities and individuals that are not being screened. Jim Tynan, Jack Haste, and Iran are not going to be properly identified. Being able to apply data cleansing technology means that you can start splitting out those records. You can start identifying values that are buried somewhere else in your data, maybe not in the correct place. And by way of a real-world example, we've got one here that we worked on a few years ago, where the input record being put into the name screening system was bank refund, Albemarle Welfare Organisation, care of James McClintock. And the risk here is twofold. Firstly, bank refund. Let's face it, there isn't a bank called bank refund. It is more a statement of intent. What are we doing here? We're issuing a bank refund. But that's going to go into screening because it's the top line, it's the name line of said record, and that's just going to create false positives for you. You're probably going to end up matching any other bank, Barclays Bank, HSBC Bank, Citibank, you name it, you're probably going to start matching based on just the fact that it's the word bank. But the other impact here is, of course, we've got 2 other names here, Albemarle Welfare Org and James McClintock. They're not going to necessarily be screened properly, so you're going to miss potential true hits. And then this example, this is exactly what was going to happen had we not implemented that data cleansing technology in front of the screening processes. Being able to split out James McClintock and Albemarle Welfare Organisation, they then got screened as distinct entities and individuals in their own right. And that helps reduce that risk of missing what actually turned out to be 2 true OFAC hits. Of course, beyond that, we've got address validation and geocoding technologies. Addresses are fraught with people's opinions of how they would type it in. I always just put the state code. No, I always put the actual state name. I always put a space between the first and last part of UK postcode, which yes, you're supposed to do, but some people don't always. There are so many variations. I always put a comma at the end of every line of an address because that's how I was taught to write letters when I was a child. Yes, true, but that's not necessarily the way that the system is going to handle that. So being able to include address validation technologies helps you standardize things like street names, postal codes, and so on. Matching and linking is that deduplication part that we spoke about. Martha R. Parks and Martha Parks care of Ron Parks. Well, Martha Parks is in there twice already. We've got state variations, we've got different formats of the same date of birth, different country names, US versus United States. And we've got that because it's come across from two different systems, one from our housing, house insurance policy management system, and another one from a claims system, for instance, if you're an insurance company. Being able to match and link those records together gives you, an automatic way to identify relationships, duplications, and so on. And that enhances risk identification. And then lastly, there is that 360-degree view. Now, this is important for two things. One, of course, creating a single, or what some people would call a golden record, the perfect record to represent our client, in this instance, Eric Jora. Because we've got him in multiple different systems. We don't want to duplicate that. We want to dedupe it, create that golden record, that good record to use. Yes, that bit's important. But equally important is to be able to prove that lineage, that audit trail back to those related records. Increasingly, regulators are wanting to see that, yes, you're getting good data in, but whatever steps you took to get that good data, to reformat that data, how did you source that data and from where, which systems did it come from? Being able to prove that through an audit trail, a sort of evidentiary chain of custody of that data as it flows through your different cleaning processes and data consolidation processes is equally as important as actually getting that golden record in the first place. So that can help you achieve much better risk detection, but equally to help satisfy those audit points about proving where you got that data and what you did with it. Data quality is, of course, great concern and an expectation of the regulators. And as Steve quite rightly demonstrated, an increasing expectation of the regulators. They're keeping a much closer eye on it. They're handing out bigger fines for issues that have come about because of a lack of appropriate use or a lack of appropriate control over data. And data quality is a foundational element to a sound compliance program. This goes back to the old saying of junk in, junk out. And understanding the source and the reason for poor data quality is key to correction. And it's key to correction for a number of reasons. You can't fix what you don't know, but equally being able to identify what issues you have and how prevalent those issues are is also a good way to start justifying the business case for getting new technology or undertaking a large effort with regards to cleaning up your data and improving your data governance. And of course, data quality needs to be an integral part of AML risk management applications, procedures, and it needs to be at the forefront of everybody's minds. And when we talk about data quality, not forgetting we're talking about a number of different techniques and technologies, profiling that data to understand what's wrong with it, cleansing it, validating it, matching and linking to create relationships, and then creating that 360, that consolidated view, as well as the underlying audit and traceability of that data. And lastly, data quality tools can be used to augment your existing AML systems and processes. It's not, as my mother used to say, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You don't have to tear everything up and start again. There are ways and technologies that can be implemented to enrich what you currently do.